Brodes Media.
I'm scared. I'm scared about this Lane Johnson injury. The Avonte Maddox one seems significantly worse, and it's not like I have a lot of trust in Josiah Scott. It's not as if I feel good about Reed Blankenship. And hell, we heard from Nick Sirianni on Monday state that, yeah, while C.J. Gardner-Johnson can return from IR, there's still some tests that need to be done with the lacerated kidney. So where are we? Injuries, sometimes it's about timing. And with the 49ers, they had some injuries. They started to get healthier. And then because of the timing of those injuries, they're on the full force right now, winning a ton of football games. The Eagles have an issue at quarterback at the moment, although I feel pretty good about that one. Lane Johnson, they say he's down and out for the rest of the regular season, and then it's to be determined the rest of the way. This is courtesy of Ian Rappaport when all the news broke. I don't know. I mean, this is what we know. He suffered an abdominal injury. He's out for the rest of the regular season. It's to be determined after that. Now, here's some quotes that I jotted down. He's been dealing with it for the last little bit, and it's not a small injury. Pretty legit. Now, that doesn't surprise me because I even brought this up on the postgame show. When he went down and you saw the replay of what happened, yeah, I mean, Lane Johnson doesn't just do that. Lane Johnson, normally when there is something bothering him, you're going to know. Okay? Now, that means, from what Ian Rappaport said, that he has been dealing with some sort of pain with it or some sort of degree of what was going on. But, I mean, with maybe a movement that occurred throughout that snap, well, something happened. I mean, it does not look good. And I think what they're trying to sell us is that he can be ready for the postseason. I don't feel good. That's all. I mean, that's the moral of the story as I sit here this morning is, I don't know. I mean, come on now. Lane Johnson, an abdominal injury. I feel like this is them just hoping and praying that he will be back in action. And this is a pretty problematic position. You might have someone like Jack Driscoll who can hold the fort down. And there's still a lot of great offensive linemen on this team. But there's a difference with what this organization has been able to do successfully when he's on the field and when he's off the field. Now, there's a lot of people maybe upset with the stat that's flying around because how does a team 4 years ago relate to a team right now? It's a totally different head coach. It's a totally different coaching staff. It's a totally different quarterback. Is there a correlation or not? I mean, when you see the numbers, they're pretty telling, okay? Since 2016, including the playoffs, the Eagles are 59-29-1 with Lane Johnson in the lineup. They're 9-21 without him. And then this is courtesy of Pro Football Focus, which I'm not the biggest fan in the world of, but Lane Johnson has given up just 9 pressures all season long and hasn't given up a sack in the last 28 games. Can you get by the New Orleans Saints with Jack Driscoll? Or if you want to put Mailata over at right tackle and throw Andre Dillard in at left tackle, which I guess is possible, but I would stick with the Jack Driscoll concept until you need to make an adjustment, until that doesn't pan out, which I think it can be fine against the rest of the way. But is it about the rest of the way anymore, or is it about making it to the promised land where the games actually matter? And all season long, they've been pretty fortunate. There have been injuries, but the injuries were a 4-week stint where Dallas Goedert missed a couple weeks. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, it might bleed into a little bit more than just a couple of weeks, but you were progressively getting your players back. Week after week, someone was getting added. This is a big blow at the wrong time. We don't even know the quarterback's current position right now, right? Now, if you ask me, would you feel comfortable with Gardner Minshew playing against the Saints at home with the banged-up offensive line and with the defense without certain players? Yeah, I do. I think I feel comfortable, and you can wrap up the job. I'm nervous with Lane Johnson. Now, there's a difference between being nervous and saying they can't do something. They absolutely can still do a lot. it just makes it that much harder. The error, the margin, right? We're talking about how much you lose in Lane Johnson. All the details matter that much throughout the game. Basically, imagine being a quarterback, right? And Lane Johnson just doesn't allow a sack. I'm sure when you're in the pocket and when you're scanning the field, the right side of the line, you don't even think about it. Like, it's not even a cross in the mind of that right side of the line. Not for a second. Because for years, let me say this again. For years, you didn't have to get sacked from that side of the line. For years. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. That's not a real statistic in the National Football League. You just don't get sacked. This is now going to open up the door for that to happen to some level. Like I said, look, I'm not rolling this team out to do the special deed, all right, to get us another Lombardi trophy. For Howie Roseman to say, hey, look at me, bastards. I got 2. What are you going to say now? I'm not rolling anything out. My point is, I'm feeling more nervous today than I have all season long because of this injury. And even if he does return, is he going to have that same explosiveness? We'll use the percentage thing again. If Lane Johnson is 65%, and look, 65% of Lane Johnson is probably better. No disrespect to Jack Driscoll. This is putting Lane Johnson on the pedestal as the best right tackle in all football. Probably better than anybody you could put at 100% on this roster right now. I don't really like the idea of putting Andre Dillard at left tackle and moving Mailata to right. I don't think that the difference in Driscoll and Dillard, I might even like Driscoll a little bit more. I say that now, and maybe my view will change as I watch him take some snaps if he doesn't excel and he doesn't, handle his business. But ultimately, I think I run with that for the beginning. What you have to do now in the secondary is figure out what you're going to do with Blankenship, with Josiah Scott. Josiah Scott's getting called out by Darius Slay after the game, basically. So he was put in a tough position. But look, this is what we know. He's got a toe injury, and he's going to be out indefinitely. And apparently this is a significant toe injury. With the news from Nick Sirianni that C.J. Gardner-Johnson still needs some tests, which is with his lacerated kidney, this makes things a little bit more not secure. Because what I would say to do, you have 2 options, just like we did with the offensive line. Here's your options. Blankenship at safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson at the nickel in the slot corner, or you keep C.J. Gardner-Johnson in his safety role where he was a ball hawk and he was getting all those interceptions, and you keep Josiah Scott maybe in the slot. I'm going with option 1. I prefer Blankenship and C.J. Gardner-Johnson over Josiah Scott and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. With that said, you might not have C.J. And if you don't have C.J., now things are going to get a little bit ugly.